was a force of nature, a one-man show, a master of two games. From his unrivaled resume to his unforgettable plays to his larger-than-life persona, Deion Sanders electrified sports like no other. Now, let's go ahead and get the inside story on the makings of the man known as Primetime. From his early days lighting up youth leagues all the way to his multi-championship glory, this is the untold story behind the man, the myth, the legend, Deion Sanders. Also, track along with us as we reveal in the end just how much money that Primetime has made over his career. The early days in Fort Myers. Born on August 9, 1967 in the heart of Fort Myers, Florida, Deion wasn't just an ordinary kid. He had a natural talent, gifted with incredible speed and a whole bunch of other athletic abilities that defied belief. From the very beginning, it was clear that he was destined for greatness. High school phenom. His journey into the world of organized sports started when he was just a little boy, but by the time that he reached high school, there was no denying that he was the fittest and finest athlete that Fort Myers had ever seen. Football, basketball, baseball, you name it, he conquered it. He wasn't just good, he was a standout. Primetime emerges. On the football field, he was a force to be reckoned with. Playing both offense and defense for North Fort Myers High School, the Florida High School Athletic Association recognized his exceptional talent by including him in their all-century team. When it came to baseball, Deion was a marvel in the outfield and a speed demon on the bases. And on the basketball court, he was an absolute monster. In fact, it was his jaw-dropping performance in a high school game that earned him the unforgettable nickname Primetime. He dropped more than 30 points and threw down some mind-boggling dunks that left everyone in awe. And you won't even believe the staggering amount that he earned while in the NFL, MLB, and coaching career. So keep watching as we have saved the best details for last. You definitely don't want to miss it. It's college days and dual sport potential. Growing up, Sanders looked like he was going to go pro in some sport, obviously. Probably football, but guess who rang the doorbell first? It was baseball. In fact, back in 1985, the Kansas City Royals had picked him up for round 6 in the MLB Draft, and they even had a chat and agreed that he'd get a cool $40,000, which is over $100,000 today. But Sanders, being courted by colleges left and right, had other plans. And in less than 24 hours after the draft, he gave Florida State University a firm nod. The rise of fame at FSU. During his FSU days, though, that's when Sanders became Primetime, crafting this wild and flashy persona that made him practically a household name. He once said that he'd be the greatest, and it wasn't just all talk. He kept crushing it in every single game. 4 years at FSU, two-time All-American on the football field, a shutdown corner, and a dynamo on special teams, no matter where they put him. It was basically where every time that Sanders was on the field, he was making heads spin. Even today, Sanders still owns or shares a bunch of FSU records, like the most pick sixes, punt return yards, and even punt return touchdowns. Juggling two sports. In 1986, he was smashing it with .330 batting average, taking FSU back to the College World Series after 6 long years. The next season, he swiped 27 bases, pushing FSU back into the CWS. And sure, football was his jam, but baseball? Those scouts just couldn't take their eyes off of him. The dual sports dilemma. Nevertheless, Sanders did have some serious game in both baseball and football, and he was all in on each of them. In fact, after his junior season at FSU, the New York Yankees even said, "Hey, why not, kid?" and drafted him in the 30th round of the MLB Draft. They knew he'd probably switch gears and jump into NFL soon, but Sanders was all about giving it a shot. He knew the real cash was in football, so he hammered out a deal that had a $1 million backup plan, just in case football got rough due to an injury. And he was crystal clear that if he ever went double pro, football took the throne, and baseball would just become his summer fling thing from opening day until NFL training camp. In 1989, Sanders ended up signing a 5-year, $5.225 million contract with the Atlanta Falcons. In that same year, he signed a contract with the Yankees, earning $62,500. A roller coaster with the Yankees. As time pressed on, Primetime kept on doing his thing, but during his 57 games with the Yankees, Sanders had a rough go at it, batting just .158 and probably being the weakest link in the team. Surprisingly, the Yankees still wanted Sanders in the mix, offering him a deal that would keep him in New York until 1991. There was one condition, though. He had to stick around for the whole season. The unexpected farewell from baseball. Sanders was ready to seal the deal, but at the last moment, they had pulled the rug out from under him, which caused a major fallout between the rising star and the team, and it didn't take long for the Yankees to bid Sanders farewell in late July, just as NFL training camp was about to kick off. The storybook moment in 1992. As time marched on, Primetime just kept doing his thing, but when October ended up rolling in, we witnessed something that was basically straight out of a sports fairy tale. A wild ride for the man himself. During that October, Sanders pulled off the impossible, where he showed up for 8 games with the Braves and managed to squeeze in 2 more for the Falcons. But what really etched Sanders' name in the history books happened on October 11th, 1992, which on that unforgettable day, he suited up for the Falcons in Miami, then dashed off to Pittsburgh to join the Braves for their NLCS battle against the Pirates. Focusing on football. After 7 years of doing the double dance between the NFL and the MLB, Sanders finally decided to give baseball a bit of a breather. But with baseball off of his plate, he turned up the heat on the football field, and in 1996, during the second year of his whopping 7-year, $35 million deal with Dallas, the legendary cornerback became a vital part of the reigning champion Cowboys offense. Seriously, can you believe it? Sanders ended up as the second most targeted player on the team and piled up some serious receiving yards, all while keeping his lockdown defense intact. And for his jaw-dropping performance on both sides of the ball, Sanders grabbed 1 of his 6 All-Pro nods. His baseball comeback in '97. But, Sanders just couldn't resist the siren call of baseball for too long. As in 1997, he made a grand comeback as the 2-sports wizard, rejoining the Reds for a spectacular baseball season, which that year, Sanders suited up for a mind-boggling 115 games with Cincinnati, a personal record, and even dipped his toes into battling title races for the first time and only time in his career. The Reds leadoff guy hit about .273 that season and swiped 56 bases, landing him 5th in the majors. But as the year came to a close, it's time to say goodbye to Cincinnati once more and head on back to Cowboy Land. The twilight of a dual sports career. But here's the kicker. Sanders' days as the double sports superstar mostly came to an end after the '97 season with the Reds. The 30-year-old Sanders decided to take a break from baseball for a couple of years, and sure, it looked like retirement was knocking on the door, because in 1998 and 1999 respectively, he basically went all in on football, adding more Pro Bowl appearances to his list and even ranked 5th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, beefing up that Hall of Fame resume of his. Oh, and he was so dang effective that even the twilight of his career, he saw a jaw-dropping 7-year, $56,125,000 contract from the Redskins when he was 33, returning to baseball in 2000. Now, here's another big twist for you. Even though he was eager to revive his baseball career in 2000, just months before that mega big deal with Washington, Sanders opted for a minor deal contract with the Reds, which earned him a cool $200,000. They ended up sending him down to the AAA team, but as it turns out, Sanders didn't make it back to the big leagues later that year. A memorable return to baseball. Nevertheless, in 2001, Sanders reignited that baseball flame with the Reds and ended a 4-year hiatus. May saw him call up to be filled in for an injured Ken Griffey Jr. at the time. Boy, oh boy, did he make it memorable. Sanders went for a perfect 3 for 3, including a majestic home run set that put the Cincinnati team on fire. Now, here's another bit of a twist as well. That triumphant return was a high point. After that, his game took a nosedive, hitting a measly 173 in 32 games before the Reds finally decided to cut him in June. Though he wasn't ready to retire his baseball dreams just yet, he did sign a major league deal with the Blue Jays a couple weeks later and only lasted a month with their AAA team. That was literally the final act on his pro baseball days. Baseball's decline and NFL retirement. The sporting world was left shocked and stunned as his football career seemed to be riding off into the sunset too, as in July 2001, just as NFL training camp was gearing up, Sanders had dropped a bombshell. He was retiring, and it wasn't a grand affair. With only a year into his Washington contract, he basically was calling it quits, fed up with the Redskins and his own slipping skills. And in a matter of days, he went from a double sport league to a full-blown retiree. But here's the thing, Primetime's charisma never dimmed, and he still found ways to stay in the spotlight. A brief return to the NFL. After hanging up his cleats, Sanders snagged a gig as a CBS analyst, making regular appearances on ESPN and hosted a Miss USA pageant. But just as it seemed that he was setting into post-retirement life, football came a-knockin'. Well, not football exactly, but Ray Lewis and Corey Fuller, the Baltimore Ravens fixtures, convinced him to return, and in a jaw-dropping turn of events, Sanders made a comeback at 37 and joined Baltimore for one last NFL venture, where he signed a one-year, $1.5 million contract with the Ravens. He did finally close the door on his MLB career with an astonishing total earnings of $13.2 million before finally hanging up that jersey for good. His final NFL stint. All right, let's go ahead and break down those good old Raven days. Sanders may have just had a cup of coffee with the Ravens, playing only 9 games, but boy oh boy did he make those sips count. It was enough to score him a fresh contract for the 2005 season at the age of 38. Sanders was out there playing all 16 games, defying the laws of age like a real-life Benjamin Button. He snatched 3 interceptions that season, climbing up the NFL's all-time list like it was a ladder. And when the final whistle blew, Sanders decided that he had enough and pulled the curtain on his career for the second and final time. He was left with a resume so shiny that you could blind yourself, earning him a spot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame quicker than you can say prime time. His coaching days. Now, let's go ahead and pivot to a closing chapter of his life, as far as we know right now, as his coaching career. After a successful run in the broadcast booth, he decided to try his hand at teaching the next generation how it's done. First, he dabbled in high school sports and then took on the reins at Jackson State in 2020. He signed a 4-year, $1.2 million contract with JSU in order to be their head football coach. And let me tell you, Coach Prime didn't just put some life back into that program, he gave it an adrenaline boost. In just his first season alone, Sanders led JSU to a surprising 11-2 record, a historic first with 11 wins, including a flawless 8-game conference sweep, where they ended up going undefeated in the SWAC. With Sanders calling the shots, Jackson State went 27-5 over 3 seasons and won back-to-back SWAC championships. Prime took that program to way new heights, and he did it all by reeling in top talent. In 2022, Sanders signed a 5-year contract with the University of Boulder, Colorado, worth $29.5 million, the same year that he signed Travis Hunter earlier at Jackson State, which was the consensus #1 overall recruit in the nation, which was unheard of for an HBCU program. And when Sanders ended up taking the head coach position at Colorado, you best believe he prized the recruit Hunter, who decided to pack his bags and follow Coach Prime out west. Sanders is already creating waves at Colorado, hauling in more 4- and 5-star talents than ever before so as to join his revolution in the football game. The man that they call Neon Deion moves fast, and he's already got the Buffaloes looking like contenders, as well as signaling that the Deion Sanders era out in Boulder will be anything but ordinary. Primetime is just getting started by showing the NCAA the way of his learnings. A timeless icon. Before we send you guys off, we kind of want to leave you with a little bit of a lingering thought. Sanders, whether he's a player, broadcaster, or even a coach, just has this magnetic pull that's stronger than a black hole's gravity. Even after 2 whole decades since he last took an NFL snap and well over 20 years since he swung a baseball bat in the big leagues, Sanders is still a towering figure and an irresistible personality who can steal the spotlight in the blink of an eye. He's basically got a primetime sign that flashes above his head everywhere he goes. And let's not forget that this most important skill of all is being an all-around awesome human being. But hey, what else would you expect from someone that can do it all, right? After all, with a lifetime earnings of $142 million, you can't say that the guy hasn't been doing stuff right. So thanks for hanging with us, and if you love this video and want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out our other videos. Until next time, folks, we'll see you later.